Hello, thanks for joining us. When the Beatles burst onto the rock music scene in the early 60s, wise heads around the Western world nodded in unison. Performers who had to attract attention to themselves with such way-out haircuts surely couldn't be any good. It took just a few years for those same wise heads to wear their hair significantly longer. And now from the same country which produced the Beatles comes a rock singer named Boy George. I wish him every success, but I sure hope he doesn't have the same influence as his predecessors.
A lot of people say I'm, homosexual. A lot of people say they're not sure. A lot of people say it's an act. I've never, ever compromised about my sexuality, about my feelings for other people, and I've never really discussed my sex life. It's always been a major topic with the press. But I think one of my saving graces is that nobody knows what I am.
Do you?
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure of what I am.
Boy George. It's been announced today that he'll be touring Australia in July, and we shall see our special satellite interview with him a little later in the program. He's a puppet little things like his very public scrap with another gender bender, Marilyn, who is, I think, Boy Marilyn, are the stuff that headlines wait for. And on top of all that, it seems his music actually is very good. It's certainly very successful. In our London studio, Boy George. Boy George, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
You have a very clerical look about you.
No, well, sort of, yeah. I got this cross, which I borrowed off the Archbishop of Canterbury, and I don't think it's particularly clerical. Clean, I look like a bottle of milk.
Well, you're a phenomenon in the recording industry. I just wonder how much of your public image is you and how much is marketing?
You know, I was dressing up long, long time before I ever aspired to being famous, so really it's something I cannot analyse. I am me. I mean, if I was sitting here naked, it probably wouldn't be as pretty, but I'd say pretty much the same thing.
It'd be more you, though, wouldn't it?
It would be more me in the flesh, but I mean, I don't think clothes make people. I think personality makes people. I think you'll find that becomes more and more apparent the longer I'm around.
I gather you don't like Marilyn much.
I don't like anyone who's short of ideas. From what I gather, neither does Australia.
Well, she allegedly got one smack in the eye, but I don't know if that's...
Well, the guy who hit him was wearing a Culture Club T-shirt.
Right.
So, good on you, Pommy.
One thing you have achieved is that you've virtually put the word androgynous back into the English language. What does that word mean to you?
Well, whenever you do anything, people have always got some kind of strange explanation. I mean, androgynous is just a very long word. It's something that we don't often use in suburbia.
We never used in suburbia.
Well, androgynous is not the sort of word my mother would use, but it just means not male, not female. I think really it's got to do with the fact that Culture Club don't really project a sexual image. I mean, I like to consider myself sexy in some ways, but I think that rock and roll survived on sex for the last 3 decades, and so really what we're doing is revolutionary because we're not selling ourselves like, guitar heroes with a phallic symbol. We're selling ourselves, in a very honest way, very straightforward. I mean, most people that meet me are surprised how normal I am.
When you were much younger and started doing your hair, while you were still at school in what would appear to be odd ways and behaving differently, what was your attitude to that? Was that a very deliberate, conscious thing, or was that just you being eccentric?
I don't think I was being eccentric at all. Everybody at my school was, pretty obnoxious. All the kids used to rebel. Everybody used to sort of go against the grain, as it were. And, the methods at my school were very, very standard methods. They weren't particularly interesting. I knew that I didn't want to do a 9-to-5 job, and I didn't really agree with the standards of the school. I didn't agree that, if you can't kick a ball, you're no better than anybody else. And I've proved that. I think I've come from nothing. And I've proved that, even my headmaster has to admit that I beat him and the system.
Can you kick a ball?
I've no desire to kick a ball. I've got better things to do with my balls.
Without the education you didn't even want, how do you now handle being a businessman?
Most very, very clever businessmen don't learn very much about business until they're involved in it. It's very difficult, to talk about something that you cannot partake in. When I was at school, we weren't taught business in particular, and we weren't taught music business. But I think it's just something that you learn once you hit the jungle and once you start to make money. One of the most important things is that you protect your interests. And, it's something that we've learned to do over the past 2 or 3 years.
Do you take a hand in investment decisions for managing your money?
Well, everybody in Culture Club earns the same amount of money, and everybody in Culture Club does different things with their money. And obviously there's a certain amount of money which goes back into the band. You know, you can't run a band and make money and then take it away. You know, when you make money, the most sensible thing to do is invest it in your career. And so really most of our money goes into Culture Club. You know, like every tour is a bigger tour. With a bigger tour, it becomes more expensive. You know, there's more people to pay. You know, all those kind of things must be taken into account. And a lot of people, they rush out and buy a Porsche. They rush out and buy, you know, houses. You know, I'm not particularly materialistic. I mean, I'm really more concerned with my career lasting a long time than, you know, driving around in a Porsche and playing golf, you know.
Your image, whether it's transsexual or transvestite or androgynous or whatever, does it ever cause you problems?
You can get away with anything. I think that if you say to people, I'm outrageous, you know, then people become affronted, people become scared. It's like if you're a politician, you know, a lot of that is 99% acting. And I think if you can really act out the part and really do things in an intelligent way, you know, put yourself over as a human being, then I think people will always accept you. But I don't think, you know, Boy George is accepted. I think there's still a great amount of unease. Because I think within the industry, people really resent us. But I think that the public, they've got a great understanding of what we stand for. And I think the public, they like me because of my eccentricities and because of my honesty. You know, and that's one of the main things, I think, that you deal with your audience directly. And, you know, the industry, I mean, I've got no time for whatsoever.
Are you ever tempted to go fashionably straight in your appearance so that your success clearly rests on your voice and your music?
My success does rest on my voice and my music. In America, I mean, particularly there, Do You Really Want to Hurt Me? The video was banned from the TV. It wasn't shown on the TV, and the record got to #2. Okay, people can say it's a freak song, but we've had, you know, like 5 or 6 top 10 hits in America. And we've had a lot of success in Australia. You know, thank you to everyone in Australia who's bought our records and supported us. But I think it's past that now, you know. I think, you know, if your second record doesn't become a hit, that means you're a one-hit wonder. I think that Culture Club has stood the ground, and I think that we've worked very hard. I really do not care what people think about my image. I mean, people say, why don't you go out without your makeup on? I mean, Joan Collins wouldn't be seen dead without her makeup on, you know. Does that make her eccentric? I mean, she's just accepted because she's a woman.
You have an influence on a lot of kids in your position as a rock star. Do you ever feel any responsibility if you were to confuse kids about their sexuality?
Everybody dresses up. What I'm doing is, you know, it's not educating people to be immoral or to be, you know, to screw them up, you know, psychologically. I mean, what I'm saying to people is be yourselves, and surely that's, you know, that's what we know how to do best. But a lot of people say I'm, you know, homosexual. A lot of people say they're not sure. A lot of people say it's an act. I've never, ever compromised about my sexuality, about my feelings for other people, and I've never really discussed my sex life. It's always been a major topic with the press. But I think one of my saving graces is that nobody knows what I am.
Do you?
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure of what I am.
Pretty
I've
sure.
been the same for the last 22 years. I've got quite a good idea of what I am. Do you know?
Well, it's very hard to be sexual for 22 years when you're only 22.
I don't know. Some of us learn easy and younger.
Where do you see Boy George in 10 years, and what'll he look like?
I don't know what Boy George will look like, and really it's of no interest to me at this stage. You know, when you're in the music industry, you have to realise that it's a very, very fickle industry. I look for a kind of career where maybe even if I give up being a frontman for Culture Club, I look for the kind of career where, you know, I'll be writing songs for other people. I've already done that. I've written a song for Tina Turner, and I'm creeping up, you know, from underneath, you know, and I'm going to be popping up all over the place. I hope that I can carry on and do other things, and I'm pretty confident that I can.
Boy George, thanks for talking with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you in Australia in a couple of months' time.
Thank you. See you, Australia.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Boy George in London, and we'll be back with more.